Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video I'd like to discuss how, after just a couple of days after I asked whether the incoming post-Brexit standards controls would even be applied, it's now been reported that the government don't intend to apply them at all. Just another game of smoke and mirrors, exactly as expected. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news and politics, please subscribe to the channel. So we have, in theory, begun our post-Brexit standards controls, not checks. They're due to begin at the end of April, with the process being ramped up to full implementation at the end of October. However, it's been clear to me for years, listening to experts, that we simply do not have the means to carry out proper import controls. Whilst the Brexiteers point at small boats, there's a real hole in our border and pretty much anyone can send what they like through it. We do not have the staff, we do not have the facilities required to carry out the checks needed to ensure the compliance of traffic passing into Britain. With customs controls, the government decided early on just to wave traffic through when it's busy. Smugglers know this, which is why there is now record levels of smuggling, costing the Treasury tens of billions, way above the amount we used to pay the EU each year to have secure borders as well as the other benefits. So it was not a stretch for me to suppose the government would do the same with standards checks. After all, if we don't have the capacity to carry out customs checks, why would we suddenly be able to carry out standards checks on top? And now, months before the checks are even due to begin, the Financial Times reports that it has seen government documents which says there will be an automated clearance process for goods entering Britain without paperwork checks if there are capacity issues at border control posts. Well, as checks will create capacity issues, given that we don't have the capacity to carry them out, that means that standards checks are going to go the way of customs checks. That is, there will be some, not really very many. What we're getting this year is the pretense of standards controls, just as I was fearing. And you can see the way the Brexiteers will push this. They will claim that we have these import controls, or it hasn't led to severe shortages that the Remainers warned about. In fact, I saw one doing it earlier this week. Oh, where's all these shortages there? We've got the checks now. And I had to point out, no, we don't have the checks. We don't have the checks. They're coming between April and October. But even after October, they're still not going to be fully in place. You know, it's also what Brexiteers said about customs controls when the customs controls came in a year late. Oh, where's all these shortages in? I mean, we have had shortages, of course, but not sustained. And it's, well, actually, we have of some goods, but in terms of where there's obvious gaps on the shelves. And it's because we don't do the checks. It's all a con. We don't have the import controls in place, and we're not going to have them in place. And you may ask, well, what's the harm? What is the harm? Well, without customs checks, we leave ourselves open to massive levels of smuggling, tens of £billions a year in lost import duties. The Tories are whining about Labour's £28 billion green investment, which apparently at this point, some point by the time this video is published, Labour are going to say, oh, we're not doing that now. Whining at it, £28 billion of investment. And they're letting tens of billions of pounds of money just sail through our borders and up in smoke. Yeah, they're throwing away a much greater sum on nothing that benefits us. And when it comes to applying or not applying proper standards controls, the issue is leaving ourselves vulnerable to unfit for consumption foods, which we know are passing through the border all the time, but also importing dangerous animal diseases. Now, so far, we've gotten away with it. And we all, you know, it's not the sort of thing that is a constant threat. It's just that at some point, something will happen. At some point, we're going to get burned by this. And British farming will be badly hit, kicking our economy a bit more because all of a sudden we'll have a situation where people will say, well, I mean, we won't have as much to export. And then some countries may say, well, we're not going to accept imports from yours. You've got a disease. And making ourselves more reliant on food imports, driving up the prices still further. But it causes indirect harm as well. Because despite what Brexiteers claim, our trade is not doing well since Brexit. It's being constrained just as independent and non-economists warned. In fact, the current problems with Brexit are actually more severe than originally warned about. Frankly, we need to negotiate better terms for ourselves. Labour have made it a priority. But the EU are not necessarily going to make it a priority. Why? Because we've got nothing to offer the EU on trade. A negotiation is a game of give and take. Each side is trying to increase its access to the other's market without conceding too much extra access to their own. Case in point, when talking about the trade deals we have with Australia and New Zealand, all of the talk on goods, what's it all about? What's it all about? Stuff that's going to come from New Zealand and Australia to the British market. Where's all the discussion of the extra goods we're going to export to Australia and New Zealand? Even the Brexit papers can't find anything to latch onto there. So Keir Starmer will want to ask the EU to agree some alignment in order to reduce the burden of export red tape. And the EU will ask, well, what are you going to do in return? He can't say, well, we'll reduce the burden for EU businesses exporting to Britain, because those EU businesses don't really face that much of a burden. They have to deal with the paperwork, sure. And the paperwork is online now for standards as well. So that will have an impact, absolutely. But because very little of it is being checked, there's no way to tell if it's been completed accurately. And I don't just mean this leaves us vulnerable to criminals, though it does. Honest businesses may just make mistakes. Like some years ago, when I first started monetizing YouTube, I needed to do tax returns. My first tax return, HMRC came back and tried to charge me like double the tax I should have been paying. Basically, I think it was coming close to charging me more tax than I'd earned. And the issue was I'd made a mistake on the forms, right? Well, export bureaucracy is more complex than a tax return for a supplementary income from a single source. So without checks, EU businesses may be filling forms in inadvertently, incorrectly, and getting away with it because no one's checking. Whereas British businesses exporting to the EU are being hit by checks, so they have to be on top of it all. Otherwise, their stuff gets stopped at the border. Could also attract the attention of other countries around the world, because right now, we're actually giving EU businesses an unfair and illegal competitive advantage over, say, American businesses or Indian businesses or Brazilian businesses. And at some point, they may decide that they want to take action against us, at which point we'll have three choices. First, apply the import controls properly on EU goods, which we can't do because we'll create massive shortages. Second, lower the import controls on all third country imports, in which case we lose way more import duties and may as well not have legal standards at all. Jacob Rees-Mogg would love that, by the way, wouldn't be great for us. Or third, face economic sanctions from the largest economies in the world. You know, we've been running on borrowed time so far. What we're getting here might be the worst of both worlds. We're not getting proper standards controls, just like we never had proper customs controls. So that means we continue to be vulnerable to all the problems that checks are supposed to safeguard against. But because the government are implementing something that they say are controls, we cannot even say they're working towards a system, because this will be the system. This is it. The Tories are describing our import controls as the most advanced border controls in the world. It's absolutely ridiculous. Our border controls consist of someone stood at the side of the road waving at lorry drivers as they go past. That's what this says. That's what our most advanced border controls in the world are. Hello, what you got in the back of the van? Oh, it's all fine. Oh, yeah, I'll believe you. Bye-bye. More smoke and mirrors. More smoke and mirrors, and not a peep from most of the media about it. But there we are. Those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. Hope you found the video interesting. If you did, please click the like button. And if you'd like to support the channel further, the join button for memberships. And until next time, I'll see you later.